Hello and welcome to Dr. VGP Talk Show. Hello and welcome to Dr. VGP Talk Show that reaches 42 million households, including 2 million households in Chicagoland. Today, we are at Krishi Bhavan, New Delhi. You're going to meet one of the senior most IAS officers of the country. The Indian Administrative Service is the backbone of the Indian administration and Indian governance. In this episode of Dr. VGP Talk Show, we are going to feature this dynamic officer from the Rajasthan Cadre, who is today reaching out to millions of consumers across India as the Secretary to the Government of India on the Department of Consumer Affairs. This dedicated IAS officer has held several key portfolios in the state of Rajasthan, including Additional Chief Secretary of Medical and Health and Family Welfare during the COVID pandemic, where he had made innovative measures to combat the COVID epidemic. He is also the brains and one of those responsible for the infrastructure with the National Highways Authority of India. He has devised an innovative app for the national tollways across India. And today he has introduced one of the most revolutionizing National Consumer Hotline 2.0. There is plenty to learn from this dedicated officer, and meet him face to face in this episode of Dr. VGP Talk Show, where you're going to learn about his early education and his training in Harvard University and Cornell, New York, as well as his different awards that he has got. Meet Mr. ROHIT Kumar Singh, IAS of 1989 cadre, the dynamic Secretary of the Department of Consumer Affairs, Government of India, who's transforming the life-changing message to millions of consumers across India. Welcome to Dr. VGP Talk Show that reaches 42 million households, including 2 million in Chicagoland. Today in this episode, we have a very interesting guest, a trailblazer, one of the senior most Indian Administrative Service officers of the 1989 cadre from the state of Rajasthan, who is today the Secretary to Government of India for the Department of Consumer Affairs. Please welcome you, sir. We are so happy to have you, Mr. Singh, in spite of your busy schedule. Mr. ROHIT Kumar Singh is one of the most brilliant and dedicated IAS officers today. He has had a great innings at Rajasthan State. He was also Deputy Additional Chief Secretary for Health and Family Welfare during the COVID pandemic.
Right.
So I know we are running short of time because he's in between meetings, and we're so fortunate to get you here, sir.
No problems.
Could you just quickly tell us about how you effectively handled the COVID pandemic and the first wave in 2020?
So I think when the pandemic struck, we were taken by surprise. We didn't have any idea about, what has come upon us. But my team of doctors and more so the healthcare workers, we were ready, and I think we went from house to house and we did a screening at a massive level. We called the model ruthless containment. That is, people were not asked to go out. But I think why we succeeded was, in addition to the ruthless containment, we made sure that in essential supplies like milks, medicine, vegetables, they were being made available by the district administration in a seamless way. So I think a combination of being strict on the health side and social distancing part, but being very conducive to the flow of essential supplies, and this combination made it a success.
Great. Everywhere you were, you hit a century, so to say, in the parlance of the digital age. You earlier had a great innings in developing public-private partnerships with the National Highway Authority of India. Could you tell us what you did there, and especially you brought in a hybrid annuity model? Could you tell our viewers how exciting and how did it to change the infrastructure landscape of India?
I handled the highway sector for the country as joint secretary and then member in National Highway Authority for about 6.5 years. And we realized that infrastructure requires a lot of investment and capacities that the private sector has, and we need to synergize the capacities available with the private sector, with the government's sanctions and the sovereign responsibilities. And I think we were able to stitch up a good model. Why it succeeded was because we were able to allocate risk appropriately between the partners, between the public sector and the private sector. Because for a PPP model to succeed, if you give too much risk to the private sector, even if it is giving a lot of returns, it may not succeed. So I think key of a success of a PPP model is appropriate risk allocation, and that is why it succeeded.
And also you had one of the innovative measures. You brought the highest and the most first successful asset monetization in India through your toll operate transfer model, which led to the largest FDI, the federal income coming in the highways, to tune of US $1.5 billion.
Right.
Could you explain to us how that came about and how was your leadership in that initiative?
So, as I said, an answer to the first part of the question is, to build more highways, you need more capital investment. Now, of course, a lot of money comes from the budget, but there are other innovative models that have been followed in the world as to how to generate capital for investment in infrastructure. So, we had a lot of public funded highways that were operating in the country. So, what we did was we created a model where we put a bundle together, let's say 7 to 8 working highways where toll was being collected by a third party. We put it as a bundle and bid it out to investment banks, pension funds, other than banks, those kind of financial institutions which were interested in taking this risk in brownfield projects. And we had to sell it all over. We had to travel to different parts of the world to pitch this model. And I think in the end it worked, because these are working highways, their revenue streams were stable, and I think the pension funds and others got interested in it. So we were also lucky to have that $1.5 billion in our first, as we call it, the bundle of monetization.
Such a brilliant career you have had. No wonder in 2004 the Harvard University gave you a Distinguished Alumni Award for academic public performance tied to public commitment.
Yes, they did. That was very kind of them.
Very good. Now you are heading one of the most important department of consumer affairs in the Ministry of Food and Public Distribution. But one of the least awareness to that department, at least from our perspective of the diaspora community, we would like to know, you are handling such a wide range of important issues reaching millions of consumers across India. So could you tell us, you have the Consumer Protection Act, which we're all familiar. You have consumer courts under your jurisdiction. You're also with the standards of weights and measures, and you have such a wide range. So could you give us an insight, Chief, and tell us what's cooking and what to expect in 2024?
So let me come to the cooking part. And so we basically have 4 pillars in this ministry or department. One, of course, is managing the food inflation. And that's why I said, what is cooking? So yes, what is cooking has to be affordable and cheap. So we are responsible for monitoring prices from across 550 points in the country on a daily basis through a technology-based system. And then we see the patterns. And if we see a commodity, rising sharply, then we do intervene in terms of policy, in terms of tweaking of import and export, in terms of release from our public buffer. And we have many levers to work on, and we ensure that the prices of the essential commodities do not go beyond a certain point. I think the fundamental principles are affordability and availability. So a lot of commodities we are dependent on imports. So you also have to monitor how are the supplies in different parts of the world. I'll give you an example. For lentils, which is called masoor in India, we produce about 10 lakh tons, we consume about 20 lakh tons broadly. So we have to ensure that the deficit of this 10 lakh tons has to flow in from other countries, the prominent producers being Canada and Australia. So we also have to monitor their crops as to how they are doing and do the price parity thing in terms of import, manage the duty regime and many other things. So 4-5 ministries of the government work together, this being the nodal ministry.
So it's a critical role which you play. You're like a watchdog to prevention of
Exactly.
black marketing, to maintenance of the supply of
Right.
essential commodities, and then moreover you are maintaining the price line,
Right.
which is, I mean, so many regulatory issues,
Right.
and you're doing it on a daily basis. So it's a
Right.
very pivotal, important role,
Right.
because India is such a vast country.
Yeah.
And with the price differential
Right.
to different public distribution
Right.
systems, it's a very critical role.
Right.
And you also, some of the medical, you have some standards and quality development is another part of the,
Right. So,
Your
as I said, one part is
Food.
food inflation management.
yes,
The second part, second, third, and fourth, related to consumers. In terms of the protection of consumers' rights. So, when you say right to have a quality product, right to get the requisite quantity, and right to for their grievances to be addressed. So, on quality, we have an institution called BIS, Bureau of
Yes,
Indian
yes,
Standards.
standards.
So, we manage the quality of the products being offered to the consumers through that system. Then we have a legal metrology framework. For example, if some company is selling something as 1 kg, whether it's actually a kg or it's 900 or 950, so there is a regulatory regime. So
that.
we work for
and
that.
you monitor that throughout the country, or
We
you
monitor
have
that-
regional offices? How does it work, sir?
So we monitor this in association with state governments. We have both set of officers, the central government and the state government, but we work closely with the state governments because this subject is part of the concurrent list of the constitution. So both center and states have common jurisdiction. And then last but not the least, the most important is if the consumer has any grievance, they can come to our National Consumer Helpline, where we respond in 17 languages, and we are very proud of the fact. But if the grievance is not redressed through a helpline system, then we have the system of about about 700 consumer courts, one in each district, then one at the state level and one at the national level.
So you have the whole country has over 700
consumer courts, where at the moment we have about 540,000 cases
Wow.
pending. And but by introducing technology and by doing capacity building for our judges, we have managed to increase the disposal. So we're very proud to state that in 2023 we disposed more than 100% of the cases that were filed.
That's the first historic record, I'm sure.
That has happened for the first time. And I'm very proud again to state that our National Commission, which is an equivalent of the Supreme Court for consumer cases, their disposal was 200%.
Wow.
All credit to the judges and the introduction of technology. We are also introducing a lot of AI-based solutions to summarize cases and to draft issues. Of course, the final judgment has to be of the commission president and members. So I think by using technology and by making the systemic improvements, we have managed to increase disposal to the satisfaction of the consumer.
You also the quality control of biofuels for the end users is also one of the portfolios which you attend to, and tell us something about that.
So there is a focus of the government both at the center and state levels to increase the use of biofuels, because we want to reduce the dependence on fossil fuels. But for that you need standards and you need certification systems. So through our machinery of BIS and in association with the Ministry of Petroleum, we do that.
So your job as the Principal Secretary of the Department of Consumer Affairs is so multi-focused.
It is multi-focused,
and
yes.
It needs a personality of your caliber to handle all this and have everything going at the same time, monitoring the essential commodities. You have the consumer movement, which comes under your gamut, the consumer cooperative movement, and and it's very important because the end users and you all are being a watchdog, and it's a very critical part. How do you see this all panning out in terms of the 2024 budget, and in terms of your goals, what the Prime Minister Modi's vision, how does the Department of Consumer Affairs fit in with it, and what's the role?
I think the Honorable Prime Minister gives this ministry a lot of importance because we touch everyone's lives, all the 140 crore people that live in India, because every person is a consumer and sometimes multiple times a day you buying goods or service on a continuous basis. So it is very important that whatever people are buying meets the quality standards, is of the right quantity, and if there is a grievance, it requires to be addressed. PM is also very keen that the prices of essential commodities should be maintained, both in terms of, as I said, affordability and availability. So he has given us a lot of delegation, a lot of freedom. There is also a group of ministers that oversees our food inflation, which is headed by the Honorable Home Minister. There are 5 ministers in it: Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Finance Minister, the Agriculture Minister, the Road Transport Minister. So they meet once in a month or a couple of months, depending on when it is required. And then they monitor the situation and give us directions on higher level decisions in terms of how to make quantities available to the population of the country at an affordable rate. And you are right, the numbers are humongous. So the problem is of big scale. But by the grace of God and under the leadership of Honorable PM and HM, we have been able to do an okay job.
It's great to know that India's Prime Minister Modi has given such importance to the 140 crore people to make sure the food inflation is one of the greatest challenges which every common man changes through the seasons of flood and drought and COVID pandemic also, and how well it's so heartening to know, Secretary Singh ji, that you have a group of ministers headed by the Home Minister, 5 critical ministers who are monitoring this on a monthly basis and regular basis under the Prime Minister's mandate to keep the prices affordable for the 140 crore people of India. And the way he's handling it, and he's chosen a wonderful bureaucrat of your standing to coordinate it. It's not an easy task. Tell us some of your successes as the Department of Consumer Affairs. I think the introduction of the National Consumer Hotline 2.0, which I read was one of innovative that you introduced since becoming the secretary. And what are the other successes, Secretary Singh?
So the extent of prevalence of e-commerce has really risen exponentially in India, and in a situation where you are buying stuff from the mom and pop stores, from the corner shops, there the consumer protection was a different paradigm. You had a relationship with the seller, and if something went wrong, you could go because they knew you, your family, and there was this kind of a personal bonding with the shop owners. But with e-commerce, I think the power equation between the seller and the buyer has really changed to the benefit of the seller, because there are huge companies like Amazon and Flipkart and what you have. So then it is our responsibility to protect the interest of the consumer.
Regulatory mechanisms cover the digital giants in e-commerce.
Exactly.
And that's a wide space. It's a new space.
Right. And since you talked about a success story, I think many of the e-commerce platforms, knowingly or unknowingly, use certain manipulative practices. We call them dark patterns. So we did a lot of consultation with the stakeholders, and only last fortnight we have said that these 13 things are not permissible, and if you indulge in this, we will penalize you under the existing framework. I think that has worked very well. And it's not an adversarial relationship with them. Sometimes they do it without knowing it, because there is a very thin line between marketing and manipulating. And I think it's upon the regulator to draw that line. And I think it's working nice here.
Excellent. What are some of the challenges you're presently facing?
So challenges in terms of food inflation, the weather gods have not been very kind, and it's not just here; it's across the world. All these El Nino effects and other. So since most of India's agriculture is dependent on weather, then it also affects our production. And if my production numbers are affected, then in order to feed the population, at the requisite price levels, we need supplies. So we have to see the global context, and I think the key here is to taking action in time. You have to preempt the problem, and I think we have been doing that okay.
You've been doing such an extraordinary job, Secretary, and that's why we were here. We flew all the way from Chicago
Thank
to
you so
capture
much.
these moments because people all across the world must know how important Prime Minister Modi is given to the consumer affairs movement and the consumer cooperatives and taking care of all the 140 crore people and the food inflation, as Secretary Rohit Kumar Singh said, just told us how he's facing the challenges, his successes, and conquering them. We would also like to tell us what can we expect in 2024, new and innovative from your department, which will reach out to 140 crores.
I think we will focus on two things. One is partnerships, and the other is technology. So when I say partnerships, sometimes the government does not engage that well. So I think we have decided that we will engage with all the stakeholders, including the voluntary organizations, the sellers, the industry, the global giants, because e-commerce is coming from there. And we will all sit on the same table and decide to the extent possible, that is what is best for the consumer. And I would just like to draw your attention to Honorable Prime Minister's speech at the B20, which just preceded the G20,
Wow.
in August 2023. And he said that the whole paradigm has to change from consumer rights to consumer care. Because when you say consumer rights, it sounds as if it is adversarial, as if I'm fighting for something. But if the companies, the producers, they have this mentality of consumer care, then a lot of these problems can be solved automatically in an inherent manner. So we tell the businesses that consumer is God, consumer is the king, as Gandhi ji also said.
Yes.
So if in your business practices, in the quality that you're offering, the cost you're offering, nobody is asking them to do charity. Of course, they have to make reasonable profits, then only they will survive. But the practices that they follow vis-a-vis the consumer, the care element has to be there. Only then it's a win-win proposition for both sides. So I think we're working in that direction. And use of technology for in terms of processes, in terms of interfacing with our clients, that is a consumer. If you use AI and other similar technologies, it will be more efficient and faster. So that's our plan for 2024.
Wow, so well said. And rightly you said, Secretary Singh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has really changed the narrative. And we in America and other parts of the world can, consumer rights, consumer advocacy is such a huge thing. For any little thing, we are ready, the Americans, including all of us, are ready to sue, for anything. And here, I like the terminology, the golden words, which you just said, that Prime Minister Modi said, consumer rights to consumer care. That
exactly.
when you replace rights and care, it changes the whole landscape.
Right.
And that here, for the consumer, is the most important thing. And thank you so much for joining us with your tight schedule today and concluding this wonderful, innovative, enlightening talk show with you. We'll come back to hear more about you. And I think the whole consumer movement is in the right hands of Secretary Rohit Kumar Singh, who's a mover, shaker, a doer. His action speaks louder than words. Incidentally, Secretary Rohit Kumar Singh's wife is Neena Singh, IPS, the first woman Director General of the Central Security Industrial Force, and that was been appointed by Prime Minister Modi, where women empowerment is a big thing. So we congratulate Mrs. Neena Singh to be the first woman Director General of Police for the CISF force across the country. And of course, his son is working in New York, studied in Berkeley, and like my colleague Dr. Vasavi Chakka, looking at a picture on Secretary Singh's table, said he resembles Hrithik Roshan. And interestingly enough, we were told in his office all call him Hrithik Roshan's lookalike. Chief, concluding this wonderful, enlightening interview, thank you for joining us. Would you tell us how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Oh. Innovative, if I may take the liberty
Yes, absolutely. You've proved it.
if I may take the liberty of being immodest, innovative, efficient,
Yes.
and proactive.
Great.
I like to take the challenges head on. I don't wait, I don't react, I proact so that I'm on the top of the situation.
You're absolutely right. Secretary Rohit Kumar Singh describes himself as innovative. He has a proven track record for that. Efficient, and right through his career as one of the senior most IAS officers in the country of 1989 batch, and proactive. He likes to take the challenges on forward. On that note, I'm sure Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Government of India have much more challenging positions coming to you in this year and beyond, sir. And we'd like, in the concluding, your message to our viewers.
I think in the globalized world, since you come from America, I think all countries have to respect the other side. There are no big or small guys in this game, and the era of condescension is over. We have to treat everyone as equal partners, and which I think is happening. And the moment this partnership is treated as an equal level at the global level, I think the world will succeed altogether. The earth will be a better place to live.
You just heard the most dynamic, dedicated Secretary for Department of Consumer Affairs, Government of India, Shri Rohit Kumar Singh, was featured in our interview, and how he responded so intelligently, so calmly, so composed. We know that India's consumer affairs is in great hands. Thank you so much,
Thank you very much,
Secretary Singh, for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.
And, thank you, and
Thank you.
really we
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.